What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown. This is the Heresy Financial Show, and Nigeria is furthering the global de-dollarization trend that has been happening, this time with dairy. And in fact, in Nigeria right now, the dollar ban is causing more and more investment in local dairy farms rather than what has traditionally taken place, which is getting rid of their local currency for dollars, then using those dollars to buy milk from the international market. This is just the latest sign in the global trend towards de-dollarization. So in this video, we're going to dive into what this means for you. Ready? Let's dive in. First things first, a word from today's sponsor, iTrustCapital. Now, most people today are aware of how well gold has performed relative to pretty much every single asset class out there. We've seen an absolute crash take place in tech stocks, in the broad stock market, in cryptocurrencies. We are seeing blood in the streets everywhere, but gold has been keeping up. Gold has been increasing its purchasing power relative to these other assets, and many people want to buy it, but the problem is most people have most of their wealth tied up in their 401k, in their retirement account, maybe even with their current employer. So the question is, how do we invest in gold with our money if we can't do it where our money's currently at? And that's where iTrustCapital comes in. Because unlike your workplace employer plan, like your 401k, you're not just going to have a selection of a couple dozen mutual funds that are only invested in stocks and bonds. And unlike your IRA with a regular stockbroker, with iTrustCapital, you're not just going to have access to the regular stocks, the ETFs, GLD, SLV, things like that. With iTrustCapital, you can invest in physical gold, physical silver, that's all held underneath the banner of the IRA so that you don't have to worry about any tax consequences. You can do traditional IRAs, you can do Roth IRAs, you can make new contributions, or you can even transfer money from your existing retirement account over to iTrustCapital and use that to invest in physical gold, physical silver. Now, they also have other alternative assets available like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And if you use my link in the description below, you will get $100 worth of Bitcoin as a sign-up bonus just for opening an account. You can use that to keep it in Bitcoin, buy other cryptocurrencies, or sell it and buy physical gold, physical silver again in your IRA. With iTrustCapital, sign up with my link in the description today. I make these videos in order to give you the tools to create as much wealth as possible, keep as much of that wealth as possible, and give generously as much as possible. And part of that is knowing what's going on in the world and the larger trends that are at play. This is no exception. We can take a look here and see Nigeria currently has a dollar ban. So the first result of this is that Nigeria's ban on buying dollars is prompting dairy companies to invest in cattle farms in Africa's biggest economy. So right off the bat here, want to address the first objection that I hear anytime I bring up really any country in Africa. Don't sleep on Africa. Africa as a continent is currently demographically and developmentally in the place that we saw China at about 30 years ago, where the entire world looked at them and said, we're writing them off. China will never go from this backwater country to fully developed, be an economic and global superpower, a powerhouse, economic machine, military strength. We are seeing the same exact things take place in Africa right now that we saw taking place in China a few decades ago that led them to become the second global superpower, probably soon to be first. All over Africa right now, we are seeing that, and Nigeria is a major player here. If we take a look at Nigeria's population, they are currently sitting at around 200 million as of 2 years ago. Right now, they've got a 2.5% growth rate in their population, which means given the population changes of other countries around the world by 2100, so the end of this century, it is estimated that Nigeria will have the second biggest population on Earth, that they will surpass China. They will go up to 791 million, and India will be at 1 billion. And we see China right now is currently in that second place spot. Their population is set to implode and fall down to about 732 million. Again, this is going off of birth rate and current ages of the population. And so obviously demographic changes like immigration could change all this up close to 80 years. That's a long time, but given the current birth rates and age of populations, this is what's projected to happen. So we are seeing an explosion take place across Africa Africa in technology, in wealth, in population. They're one of the only places on earth that still has a population rate of growth that is both sustaining and growing. Many Western countries do not have a birth rate that is at replacement level, 2.1%. Most Western countries are below that. And so we are seeing in real time a shift from the West to the East, and Africa is a huge part of that. The other reason why I say don't sleep on Africa is because of technical debt. So if you're starting a software company, typically in the beginning, you'll do things in a way where you cheat just to get the result accomplished, even though you know that, hey, this solution that I used isn't going to be able to scale down the road, but it accomplishes it now for the small user base that you have. You know, later on at some point, you're going to have to go back and replace that with something that can scale, and that will take you time. And so you're taking the short way out now, knowing that you're going to have to go back and fix that later. The same thing happens with infrastructure. If you take a look at many countries in the West, you deal with old power grids, old like telecommunications lines, like telephone lines, things like that. In countries that didn't develop any of that infrastructure, you don't have to go back and fix all those old legacy infrastructure systems. You get to build from scratch new with all the new technology, much easier to advance much faster. So that's why I say don't sleep on Africa. So when we come in here and see, hey, we have a ban on buying dollars from Nigeria, this is a big deal. And when we talk about global de-dollarization, we are most likely not going to have an episode that takes place where the entire world gets rid of their dollars overnight. Most likely that's not how this thing plays out. But this thing takes a long time. So we take a look 5 years ago, most central banks all around the world had treasuries. You add them all together, they had more treasuries than the Federal Reserve had 5 years ago. Today, that's not true. You take a look 5-10 years ago, central banks around the world were on net buyers of US treasuries. You take a look today, they're on net sellers of US treasuries, especially places like Japan that were usually the biggest buyers. They're not buying anymore, they're selling. Treasuries are basically currency, money for international trade, sovereign wealth funds, for central banks, for institutions, for large corporations. It's just looked at as a reserve, as basically cash. So a treasury is a dollar that pays you interest. If you sell a treasury, you're going to get dollars in its place. But do actual dollars pay you interest? No. So if you don't want a treasury, which is just a dollar that pays you interest, you definitely don't want a dollar, which is a dollar that doesn't pay you interest, right? And so we've seen this trend to get rid of treasuries take place. It's still going on. It's not complete yet. It'll have a while to go, but it has been happening in real time before our very eyes. So at some point, the dollars will start to get dumped as well, and we see little signs of that happening all over. Last year, we saw little signs of it happening in Russia. Now we see the results of that they were able to de-dollarize enough to not care about potential sanctions. We see how that's turning out right now. We are seeing countries all around the world, just like Nigeria, banning buying dollars. This is a big deal. So we're seeing little tiny steps moving forward for the world de-dollarizing, getting rid of dollars. Now, at some point, it'll start to happen faster, right? These things happen gradually, then all at once, right? So at some point, it'll turn and it'll start to accelerate, and then the world will be getting rid of dollars. And the way that works, if Japan is trying to get rid of dollars, but so is Germany, and so is China, and so is India, nobody else is going to take them, right? You can't get rid of your dollars for yen. You can't get rid of your dollars for euros. You can't get rid of your dollars for whatever currency, because everybody's trying to get rid of their dollars. Where in the world are you going to get rid of your dollars? Well, you could just burn them, right? You could just throw them away, just delete them, just like wipe them out and just pretend they don't exist. But most likely, most people are not going to do that until they're actually worthless, right? So if you are trying to get rid of your dollars for something else of value, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the one place left on earth that is required to accept dollars. That is the United States. So you're going to go to the United States and you're going to say, hey, here's a dollar. Give me some shares of stocks. Here's a dollar. Give me some real estate. Here's a dollar. Give me some land. And when asset prices have exploded to the point, because the markets here have absorbed all those dollars that we've been shipping overseas for decades, all those dollars come flooding home, buy up our assets to the point where there's no more potential return and they're so overvalued. The next place those dollars are going to go is to buy our stuff. All of the stuff we bought from overseas, all of the stuff that we've shipped from our trade deficit for years and years, the inventories in our warehouses, our grocery store shelves, all that stuff is going to get shipped right back overseas. Our deficit is going to flip and we are going to have a massive surplus because all these dollars are going to start flooding back home, and all the stuff that we've been buying from overseas will go back to where it was created. That stuff will go back home as well. But for now, we just see little signs of this, like a ban on buying dollars from Nigeria. The central bank in Nigeria, they ration dollars. So they've barred importers of 45 products, including milk, from accessing foreign exchange on their authorized market, which it tightly controls. Partly the reason for this is because they want to control the value of their own currency, right? If everybody tries to dump their currency to go get dollars, that will impact the value of their own currency. So they want to try and stop that from happening, which is boosting demand for producing stuff locally instead of getting it from overseas. So we will wait and see what this turns out to look like. We'll wait and see whether this is something that benefits Nigeria or doesn't benefit them. But ultimately, this is a sign of some other things happening as well, including the fact that developing countries and emerging markets all over the world are starting to struggle. It is getting more and more and more expensive because the dollar has gotten so strong recently that we could start to see a wave of defaults sweep across the planet in all these emerging markets because they just can't afford dollars anymore. But that is a topic for another video. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.